I am so pleased to have Jesse Griffin with us today. She is a chaplain, and I have to tell you, Jesse and I go way back. In fact, pretty much since 1994, we've known each other. Day one, when she
Yeah.
came into this world. And I'm so pleased and blessed because it was actually on our mutual birthday that she arrived. And I have to just say, since we are sort of in the spirituality section, I have a quick little story. I had already four sons at the time, and 2 years before Jesse's birth, I had been praying really hard, went to a very special place of worship and prayed. And I had a revelation, a personal inspiration that I was supposed to try again, and I would have a baby girl, and she would be born on my birthday. And I know that sounds outlandish, and yet about 1 year and 10 months later, that is exactly what happened. So I am so pleased to know that my daughter has continued in the spiritual realm and that she's been able to help people, guide people, whether they're religious or not, in so many areas of their lives. And so I'm excited to be able to share her with you today. And of course, she is one of our founding Success Magnet coaches, and you are going to see why in a minute. All right. So, Jesse, welcome to the Success Magnet Network. And I'm so excited to actually speak with you today. Now, I know that there's something that you're going to talk about initially. First of all, let's say hello.
Hello, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for giving me the chance. More than anything, I'm just really excited to teach people about what chaplains can do because I feel like they're such a needed resource in today's day and age. So I'm gonna get to gush about it.
Good. All right. So, why chaplaincy? I mean, was that even on your radar screen a few years back? And tell us what happened to help you to get to this position. Were the things that fell into place? Was it a push? Tell us what happened.
Mm. Oh, I love this story because it's such a testament to me that God works in mysterious ways. So I, from a young age, had always wanted to be a school counselor. Since receiving, my own mentorship from school counselors growing up. So I ended up going to school for psychology and then getting a master's of education in psychology and school counseling. And I worked as a school counselor for years, and it was wonderful. It was everything I wanted it to be. And I was at the top of my game. I was in a privileged position at a high need school, and I was the only full-time counselor there, which was like only one of six possible positions in the whole district were like that, the largest district in my state. And so it was not lost on me that I was living my dream. And then I became pregnant with my second son, and I found out that the due date was the first day of school for the next school year. Like,
Wow.
okay,
Okay. So,
how am I going to navigate this? Okay, all right, if I take my, maternity leave, even the minimum, I'll be gone the first 2 months of school. And I
Mhm.
can't do that to my students. And I was like, okay, well, maybe we could get someone to come in a couple days a week to kind of sub. And I was like, I was just feeling really ill at ease about it. And I was kind of, really wrestling with God. I was like, why is this so hard for me to choose what to do? And I felt distinctly that God was telling me, you could regret working, but you would never regret being home with your baby.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like,
For me, that hit me. I kind of, I'm tearing up already.
yeah. Well,
Yes.
and I was like, really? And I believed it. I knew it was true. And what God was asking me to do was to give up my dream. And I didn't know what was coming next. So, a year or two went by and I was kind of just grieving. I was like, God, where do you want me to be? And
Mm.
I feel distinctly that there were these little breadcrumbs, spiritual breadcrumbs along the way that were leading me to chaplaincy. I got invited to a seminar by the chaplain at Harvard, and she is incredible. And she inspired me so much that I was like, wait a second, there are chaplains in schools? Because until then, I'd only really heard about them in like maybe hospitals, but definitely the military, and I didn't know how I felt about that. And she's like, "Oh yes, and if you wanted to do it, given your background, you totally should. And here's a good program you could enter. And if you get in, it's a full ride plus a stipend. And so essentially, the rest is history. I did make it into that program, and I've been so, so blessed by my association with everyone involved in it. And now I'm working as a chaplain, and I'm just kind of branching out even more. Since I'm still pretty, learning more about this field. I have done hospice, hospital education, and incarceration chaplaincy so far, and I've been loving all of them. And I'm taking with me my experience of individual counseling as well. So my hope going forward is I'll be able to part-time work in kind of more institutional organizations and do my own thing where I can meet one-on-one with people and help them spiritually.
What surprises you most? That's a terrific story, by the way. And yet, what surprises you most about this journey becoming a spiritual advisor as far as chaplaincy? And how do you think that people have a misconception about chaplaincy? And what kind of things do you feel? I know it's a lot big question. What kind of things do you struggles that you can help people with?
Okay, so in terms of what surprises me most, I feel like that can go kind of hand in hand with some misconceptions people might have about chaplains. So upon hearing the word chaplain, most people, what comes to mind if they've ever heard it at all, are something of a clergy, probably someone who works in the military. Um, and that's the extent most people think about it. Um, and people who might know more might be like, oh, well, you're a religious person. You talk to people about their religion, but if that doesn't apply to me, then we have nothing in common. We have nothing to talk about. So the most surprising and beautiful thing I've discovered as I've learned more about chaplaincy and practiced is that spirituality encompasses so much more than just religion. Religion is spirituality in action. But spirituality has everything to do with your purpose in life, how you find meaning, the fulfillment of your relationships, how you feel peace in your life. And so it can branch into all other aspects of your life. And if you are at peace spiritually, then it doesn't really matter what else is going on in your life, that you can still feel grounded and feel like where you're meant to be.
Okay.
So yeah, so all I wanted to say with that is, so anytime I'm meeting with someone and they're like, "Oh, I'm not religious," or you might not be of my same religion, then I'm still able to meet with them as a human soul to a human soul and find connection through our shared spirituality.
So even if they don't have a religion, you're saying you can help them. So let me pose this to you. Of course, you're part of our founding Success Magnet coaches. Now, why would somebody in chaplaincy be there? Because you kind of, a lot of times people think of success as, oh, it's money. In my opinion, success has everything to do with, five areas of your life: health, education, relationships, opportunities, and spirituality. But spirituality is the most important driving force, because none of those other things can happen unless you visualize it first
Mhm.
and then you allow it to transform your life in the 3D. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about that as far as being a spiritual guide for people.
Well, yeah, not a lot of people know this, but most of the reputable and accredited hospitals in the country are required to have chaplains because they recognize that holistic health, a truly healthy person, has healthy spirituality. And not just hospitals, but major corporations. United Healthcare has chaplains. Tyson Foods has chaplains. And more and more organizations, universities, it's society is realizing that this is something that has been neglected for a long time. And so they need professional, not just clergy who are going to evangelize, but people who are tapped into world religions enough and global spirituality to be able to meet every single person where they're at in their unique journey and to be able to help them thrive within their own faith tradition.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And yet, I've heard you talk a little bit before about, people who don't have a religion. How do you think that your core values really help you to determine where you need to go with them and how to give them comfort in situations in their life? And what type of situations would you deal with? Maybe somebody that doesn't really have a belief in a higher power.
Yeah. It happens fairly often, even just today. So right now I'm actually on shift at a hospital, and I went up to a man, and he was kind of like, nah, not interested. I'm not spiritual or religious. And as we got to talking, he said something along the lines of, I really miss my wife. And there is something within every soul that yearns for purpose and meaning and connection. And once you can learn that about someone, you can see into that soul and you can love unconditionally. And once that person feels that love, then they feel like, oh, somebody understands me. And suddenly they're not so alone anymore. And healing and confidence and motivation start increasing. So yeah, I mean, really, it's just a matter of finding what really matters to someone, because regardless of their faith background, everyone has something that matters to them. And once you can tap into that meaning, that purpose in their life, you can unlock their own awareness of themselves and what they need. Um, and as they connect to that, they can begin to understand themselves better and function more fully in life.
Well, I know, Jesse, that you are a national treasure. In fact, quick little story. She has always been a member of the choir, and her high school had, I think, 500 members in it. And she decided to do a semester abroad overseas. And even in absentia, she was voted to become the president of her senior year. And I remember the choir director coming up to me and saying, you know what? I love Jessie on so many levels. I would vote for her for POTUS. So there you go. Now I
Okay.
know that sort of the departure from what we've been talking about. And yet, I think it is very important to understand that the leadership that comes with being able to understand somebody's situation and call in the education, which you have a degree in psychology, you have a degree in counseling, and then now a second master's degree in chaplaincy. How does the chaplaincy differ then from the counseling versus like psychology?
Yeah. Excellent questions. And this is something that is widely discussed among the fields themselves as well. What is our role in comparison to therapists or psychologists? And I'm really grateful that it's come to a point where there's a great degree of mutual respect and an understanding that we each have our lanes and our fields in which we can collaborate. So, as part of an interdisciplinary team, an example might be that anything having to do with psychiatric disorders, I might refer to a psychologist, or something having to do with like basic uh, necessities and needs, I might refer to the social worker. But when it comes to emotional things having to do with like meaning and purpose and stress and peace and connection and helping people really dig down deep to understand themselves, that is something I can do. And some people might say, okay, well, then why not just a therapist? Because, yeah, some therapists can do that. And I will say that I very much value and come from that background. The difference is that chaplains, having been armed with an awareness of and a respect for people's religions and faith traditions or purposeful lack thereof, can come at people from a different angle. They talk about things that are, the meaning of life. Try to talk to a therapist about like, hey, can you talk with me about what I think the meaning of life is? And that might not be the same, they might be like, that's out of my purview. But Chaplains, we're here for that. We also specialize in grief support and bereavement. So some therapists could be like, give you coping skills for your emotions, but chaplains will sit in it with you. They'll be able to get down to the deepest part and the deepest feelings you have and give you permission to feel those hard things that you've never had to feel before. And in so doing, they accompany you into those darkest moments so that you're not alone and you can rise out of it with more light.
I think everybody watching this can feel your spirit and they can feel that you're a person who cares deeply. And I feel like some of the things that you have been discussing just recently is that this is what everybody needs. It's not just
Yeah.
people that are grieving at a certain point. Yes, that's more important at that point, but I feel like everybody needs some sort of a spiritual counselor or somebody to go to that they know not only is there as a friend, but is somebody who's trained and developed themselves to understand you completely. And I I applaud you for that. Now, before we end this interview, I'd like you to come up with one of your heartwarming stories just I know you have them every single day. And if you could just share with us a heartwarming story about, um, maybe God's will and you helping somebody along the way and what you feel that person came away with. And maybe it could be something life-changing for them.
Mm. You're right that I do have a lot, so I'm sifting. One that more immediately comes to mind, and I want to, up front say that like because some of my current hours of work are within a hospital, these people are patients. They're here because they're being hospitalized. And so the typical person I might meet with outside of a hospital might not be experiencing some of these same things, but I will extrapolate some kind of more generalizable lessons out of this. Um, because so this one particular instance, I was meeting with a woman who was in her 50s, but because of substance abuse over many decades, she appeared to be much older, probably in about her 70s, and she was in the process of dying. She knew this, and she was really agonized about it. She was really distraught. She kept saying, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And instead of me saying, "Oh, don't be afraid," or "It's going to be okay," I said, "Okay, tell me about what you're afraid of. What are you afraid of in dying?" She says, "I just don't want to be alone."
Hmm.
I said, Yeah, I wouldn't want to be alone through something so new like this either." And I said, "So who do you have now? Who's with you now?" And she told me about her dog who she loved, one of her best friends. And then she told me about her daughters. She said that she's in contact with one of them, but she said that she hasn't spoken with her other daughter in 6 years, and that they've been estranged from each other. And as she was saying this, she just was so very clearly filled with so much regret. And so, one of the things I'm trained to do is to be able to I perceive these emotions and say them out loud for people. And so I said, "Seems like you have some regrets." And she says, "Yes, my life is regret." And in that moment, I could tell that she was just feeling so down. So I said, "Okay, tell me for a moment. If you were to die, what would be your perfect death?" I know this sounds really interesting, but for people in this moment who are already thinking of and fearing death so much, this can be a really comforting question. And she said, well, I would go to sleep and then I'd wake up somewhere beautiful. And from then on in our conversation, she just had this kind of hopeful demeanor. And she said, "Could you help me call my daughter? I want to tell her I love her and I'm sorry." And I said, "I will do that. She needs to hear it from you." And fortunately, in the next day or so, we were able to get her in contact with her daughter and they were able to speak. And I don't always know the end of patients' stories, so I don't know what happened to her from there, but my what I had heard is that she was able to go into hospice care. And so my prayer is that she has since woken up somewhere beautiful.
Wow, Jesse, it's a beautiful story. And I even though this is an online virtual meeting, I don't even have to ask you. I already know that you can handle that kind of an interaction with somebody online. And that this is why we're so happy to have you as part of our team, as part of our network of success magnets, people who want to become better or more efficient or more comfortable in every area of their life. And we're so grateful to have you as part of that. So thank you. And we wish you the very best in your day-to-day efforts. And we're excited that you're going to be able to bless people all over the world as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me.